Welcome, adventurers. This is the March acting video, and this month I wanted to talk to you just basically about all of the acting experiences that I've ever had. I'll get right down to it, and we'll start with the very first thing I ever did in any true acting capacity would be in middle school. I was in a play called The Cinderella Story, at least I think that's what the title of it is, and what it was is like an amalgamation of a bunch of different Cinderella takes on the Cinderella tale. There was the German version and like the French version, and I don't even remember all the different versions. I was cast as the prince in the normal version or in the classic version, which served actually as the interclary chapters. It served to be this is what's going on in the general course of the story for Cinderella, but now let's tell the tale about Baba Yaga and her hut, that kind of thing. So I was cast as a prince, very small part. An entertaining story from that. I'm going to try and like name every major bit that I've done and then tell like a little entertaining story from each one. An entertaining story from that would have to be my opposite, the girl playing Cinderella. She was using it was a middle school theater department, and I was not in theater. I got to audition for it. But she was using our costume department was using one of the teacher's daughter's wedding dresses for her Cinderella gown, and it was underneath her rags, and there was a scene where she would basically run off stage in the gown, or no, sorry, the rags were underneath it, run off stage in the gown, we'd pull the gown off, all of us off stage would pull the gown off, she'd have her rags underneath, and in a split second she'd have done the costume change. It worked beautifully in all of the rehearsals. Well, lo and behold, on the only night that we put on a performance, the zipper stuck. So, and it was one of those like starts at the top and zips down to the waist. Well, the zipper stuck like halfway down the small of her back. And what the scene was is like she ran off, leaves me on the stage, and then I chase after her, help her out of the dress, and she comes running back on stage. And I stay off stage. I had like 2 lines in the whole play. Dress gets stuck. I was the last person on stage. So we all sit there and fight. We're trying to be careful because we don't want to rip the dress. As an important dress to somebody. And we're all fighting with the zipper. And somebody was like, Greg, you got to go back out there. Go back out there. Because the crowd is you're starting to get that quiet murmur throughout the crowd. Jennifer, the girl playing Cinderella, just grabbed me by the waist and just shove. And so I just like stumbled out onto the stage and looked at the crowd and then just like improv this line of like, where is this my love that I have never seen before? And then ran off again. And it was not enough time for them to get the dress off of her, but it did buy like a few more seconds and gave us a few more seconds of dead time after I left for them to fight with it a little bit more. But in the end, all I could do was just pull the top of it down to her waist. And so it was just rags from the waist up and beautiful white ball gown from the waist down. So she runs out on stage and starts delivering her lines, and she's flushed and she's laughing and giggling through her lines because of just the ridiculousness of it. So the crowd is of course chuckling and stuff. The scene ends and we move on, and when my dad told me later after the play, he was like, I didn't know that line was improv. I mean, we figured the only reason there was any delay in between those lines was because you were fighting with the dress afterwards, but I didn't know that line was improv. You did really good. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, I think I kind of want to do this, like, as a thing. And then I went into high school, and my mom and my stepdad, who are both dead now, so I can kind of be free about saying the truth about how they handled some of the things when I was growing up. They were the ones that were in charge. My mom had custody because my mom and my dad got divorced when I was 5. So they were the ones that were in charge of what classes and stuff that I took, ultimately. They were the parents that got to sign all of the release forms. I was not able to use my dad's signature for that sort of thing. So they had a lot of control over what I learned in high school, which is not fair to me. And looking back, if I could go back in time and change one thing, it would have been to fight for that, even if it meant I had to go to summer school. My parents would not, my mom and my stepdad would not let me do choir and theater. I had to pick one or the other. I'm a musician at heart. I've always been singing my whole life. I couldn't give up choir. I'd found choir in 8th grade. I really enjoyed it, and so I stuck with that. Choir, I say should go on the theater list in some extent just because it's a performative thing and it teaches you things about performance. Things like posture and breathing and the sustaining of sound, and I've lost all of that because my back is messed up, and clearly my my breath support is not what it should be because I've smoked a good portion of my life. Now I vape, so it's slightly better, but not much. Anyway, so my next real acting experience in high school didn't happen until, I guess, technically sophomore year, because I tried out for the musical all 3 years that I was in show choir. And I did show choir as well, which is basically a smaller version of choir with kids that dance. And I had a lot of fun with that. So we learned jazz dance, real simple jazz dance, real simple tap dancing, just very rudimentary stuff, taught to us by student teachers most of the time, because football got more of a budget than the arts. I went to high school in Texas. Shock. Anyway, so the first play I did in high school would have been a musical, and that was, I take that back, it would have been junior year, and it was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. No, I skipped one entirely. It was not actually during high school. It was in between freshman and sophomore year. I was in a production of The Music Man by a local theater company, and it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. It was the first time I ever got to do any kind of acting whatsoever. I have a problem with community theater that charges you to be in it, and that was one of the things that it was. They said that it came with classes and stuff like that, but not really. It came with trainers to teach you how to sing a little bit, and actors, but it was, especially in the theater company that I'm not going to name because that's not nice, the theater company that I was in, it was unprofessional, and it was for kids. It was primarily for children, and it was, in the end, the production that we ended up making was really cool. I had a lot of fun with it, but there were favorites played, and the kids who have been there longest and invested a lot of money got the higher roles, and I started to get a taste of what politics in theater was really like, and in acting and stuff like that. And then moving into high school, it's a little bit more pronounced in high school, because then it's the kids who've been in theater for as long as they have, the ones that are seniors. Even if they're not that good, seniors would get lead roles just because they've been around the longest. So, I experienced a lot of that in high school. I watched that happen, even though I wasn't in theater until my senior year, when I finally had enough time in my schedule, and, sorry, I'm a little cold, finally had enough time in my schedule, and enough, and I eventually had a car of my own, so I could drive myself, and my parents could no longer argue that it took too much time to do more than one. So in high school, I did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers after we did The Music Man with that independent thing. But in high school itself, I did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and I was cast as one of the suitors. Not one of the brothers, but one of the evil suitors, the bad guys. It was fun. Then senior year, I got the lead bad guy in Annie, or, well, I guess the lead male bad guy in Annie, Little Orphan Annie. I got to play Rooster. I got to be smarmy, and it was my first real acting experience with playing around with an accent. And this is not it. This is terrible. I'm just pulling something out of my ass. But he was smarmy, and we slicked his hair back, and I got to get really into it, and we got to sing Easy Street. Easy Street. Great song. Otherwise, though, I don't like that musical. I don't like most musicals, even though I claim to be a musical theater person. I'm really picky. I prefer operettas. I prefer stuff that's more singing than acting, that has less dancing and more focus on the music and the lyrics. Not to say that Rent didn't have dancing. Rent clearly did, but I like things like Rent and Phantom of the Opera and Wicked, and again, Wicked has some dancing. But Les Miserables, and the darker the musical, the better, usually. I actually really like the Phantom of the Opera sequel, which is called Love Never Dies. Fantastic. Well, maybe fantastic's a little too strong a word, but I really enjoy it. The plot is far better than the first one. Far, far better. And maybe it's just because it's not as tired as the first one, but... Alright, so I'm rambling on about I'm getting distracted with some opinions, but... back into acting experience. Again, hand in hand, I feel that singing experience kind of goes with it. I took private voice lessons from 8th grade on until I graduated. So for 5 years, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Yep, 5 years. And then I was in choir for the semester that I was in college. I was also in theater. That was my major for the semester I was in college at Texas State University, and I loved it there. I did not leave Texas State because I dropped out or because I didn't like or because I was bad at school or anything like that. Just wasn't ready for it. But I'll get into that. That's the next part of the story. I'm getting ahead of myself. Texas State University is super cool. I urge you to look up the campus online if you can. The theater building has a fucking moat, or it's just in the middle of a pond, whichever way you want to look at it. The theater building has a moat, and it's neat. And while I was in theater at Texas State, I was cast in Night of the Iguana by Tennessee Williams as I'm fucking shivering, as a very small part. I was actually a vacationing Nazi. It was the first time I cut my hair after I swore that I wouldn't, but because it was for theater and it was for acting, I decided to go through with it. But I was a vacationing Nazi. I played basically a Hitler Youth in the play, and if you're familiar with Tennessee Williams' Night of the Iguana, the vacationing German family during World War II that end up in the same setting as the lead character and all of that are supposed to be representative of his inner demons. And so the director told us in no uncertain terms we were chosen because we were good looking and sexy and would be willing to wear swimsuits on stage. And we were like, all right, that's cool. So we faked learning a little bit of German. We worked with a voice coach to help us with accents on our actual lines that we had. I got to give a little bit of input because I listened to Rammstein and be like, I know what ugly, like if you wanted to say you are ugly, I say du bist hässlich. And be like, that'd be really good because they would have called us ugly Americans. And so we had a lot of working with it was fun. It was fun to be a Nazi. The only time you will ever hear the rambling bard say that, punch fucking Nazis. Anyway, it was fun to be in the play. There were a lot of seniors and people that had been doing this for a lot longer. And a higher production rate, those seniors that got the parts knew what they were doing. I wasn't expecting to get a lead role as a freshman in college, but that's a reality of going into most theater departments from what I see is like you've got your veterans, and to overcome the veterans is a challenge. It really is. I mean, and I think that's universal for most theater things. And it's not meant to be a cutthroat business, but it ends up being that way, I think. And you got to do everything you can to not play that game. And I think that would be some of my biggest challenges going through with it. Wife and baby are home. After college, the reason I left college was actually because I wanted to go on the road with Renaissance festivals, and I did exactly that. I worked with a couple of vendors and stuff and sold their wares, but eventually at the Arizona Renaissance Festival, I met the casting director thanks to one of my friends, and again, there's that thanks to one of my friends. Sometimes it just takes knowing the right people and talking to people and getting to know people. One of the philosophies I'm chasing right now is work until your idols become your peers, and I think that's beautiful. I think that's a wonderful thing, is to always be aiming to be as good as the people you look up to, if not better, you know. And always be looking to change. And if you pick the right people that you look up to, you'll always have improvement because they're ahead of you already. You always have improvements to make. But I got signed on as an independent lane character, and I got to perform as what you see now. well, what you see this channel doing now, which is the Rambling Bard. I got to sing. I got to walk around and perform at people in the lanes and get them to give me money. And that was probably the most fun I ever had. The dog's whining because my wife just got home. So come here, Luna. It's okay. She'll be inside in just a second. While I was on the road with the Renaissance Festival, I met a lot... Renaissance Festivals, I should say. It's not all one thing. And that's another video talking about my experience with Renaissance Festivals, because it's pretty in-depth. That would be where I probably got the most of my acting experience, because if you work at a Ren Fair, you have to act, period. Doesn't matter what role you are. If you're pushing a cart, if you're pushing a swing for it with a kid on them, if you're selling turkey legs, if you're selling roses, if you're up on stage, you're acting at a Renaissance Festival if you're one of the workers. And if you're not acting, not only do you get, not only are you not doing your job well, you'll get in trouble, and you'll have to be a customer instead. But I fell in love with Renaissance Festivals attending as a customer, and then I became what they call a patron, or a patron that comes out to play act with the cast and with the other members and stuff like that, and to feed that magic of an interactive world that you can play in that has historical basis. Historical basis is the best way to put that. It's accuracy. It's, as a con man I once knew put it, it's more like a Stevie Nicks music video than it is anything close to accurate. And that's okay! Stevie Nicks music videos are cool! But don't go to a Renaissance Festival expecting accuracy, at least not on a large. You want accuracy, I suggest you go to something called the Society for Creative Anachronisms, or the SCA. As a matter of fact, they focus very big on accuracy. Very largely. Bigly? Huge? I don't know. Yeah, but like I was saying, I had a lot of fun with Renaissance Festivals. I made some of my closest and dearest friends I've ever made while I was out there doing it. And I learned the most about performing there. And so that kind of sums up my experiences, the different various ones that I... So as you can tell by the fact that I've got my headphones and my glasses on, I'm already in the editing stages of this video when I realized that I left out two very important, pertinent acting experiences that I had that I wanted to touch on generally before I get into this whole spiel about, hey, say things in the comments below about which one you would like me to talk more about, in depth about, etc. So I talked about high school, talked about college, talked about the Renaissance Festival, and we talked about doing this, or we're about to talk about doing this. What did I feel like I talked about something other than the Renaissance Festival as well, but maybe I didn't. Anyway, two other major things. In high school, I was also cast my senior year as one of the lead roles in a Shakespeare play. Shakespeare's kind of a class of performance in and of itself, like much as I'm sure things like certain types of avant-garde modern art performance are class of performance in and of themselves. And the other thing I'm going to talk about is a class of performance in and of itself. Haunting. I worked at a haunted house for a whole year. I was one of those year-round places that had a different show kind of for every month, different layout, different monsters, different scares. Really, really, really cool and innovative what they did. And I enjoyed working there very, very much. And I learned a lot. So Shakespeare, I was cast in Much Ado About Nothing as Claudio, one of the main-ish characters, supporting role, not, I wasn't the main character whose name I don't even remember nowadays. But Shakespeare was one of those things that, like, it took a long time for it to click for me. But once it did, like, it was done. Like, I just understood it. And it was kind of neat how that worked. We were able to use a tool, kind of like a Cliff Notes, but not, because it didn't shorten things, it just modernized them, something called No Fear Shakespeare. And that helped a lot of us out, especially me, Rob, and Michael, the lead guys. And the ladies had an easier time with it, from what I remember. The women in our in that play, but us goofball dudes struggled with memorizing it and remembering our lines. But again, while it was a different beast and it was stressful up until the point where I understood the language a little bit more, it was a lot of fun. And then to touch just briefly on working at the haunted house, not only did I learn about timing and waiting for your prey target customer to be vulnerable and to be able to get the scare in. So it was waiting for the right moment and learning to read body language from your audience, from your customer. And then I also got to learn stunts. I own a pair of stilts because I bought them about 1.5 years ago because I loved learning to walk on stilts while I was working there, and it was one of those things. It's kind of like Harry getting his Nimbus 2000 and me getting my own stilts is kind of that feeling of freedom. I just got drywall stilts. I'll show you a link I'll talk about stilts in their own video, I'm quite certain. But yeah, let's get right back to the original, no glasses, no headphones, original rant, and because this is already ridiculously long, so yeah, thanks. Please let the sound have worked this time. And then of course this, I like working at voice acting by reading books and stuff like that, and I'm getting back into the swing of streaming more often, and I talk with my hands a lot, but I'm getting back into the swing of streaming more often, so you'll see me doing voice acting more often in the form of reading books and trying out different voices. I love reading Harry Potter, but I'm a little upset with J.K. Rowling because she's a TERF, and I don't deal well with TERFs. Trans women are women, so, and her inclusion of gay people and people of color always seems to be at convenient times, and never in her published works, always on Twitter. So she knows what she's doing, and I don't approve of that, so I don't know how I feel about supporting reading her work anymore. But my acting experience, I would say, extends to the stuff that I'm trying to do here on Twitch and on YouTube. So if you'd like to see any of my acting videos or my acting chops, then please check out youtube.com/TheRamblingBard. Pretty much everything any platform, you can find me as The Rambling Bard, all one word. I'm on Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I don't think there's any more, but yeah, one of the major ones that is actually different is my Etsy shop, because the Rambling Bard as a shop is just weird. So the shop is actually Bard's Bounty, and I'm going to work on developing a website shortly, and you can actually buy things to where you can buy things from the website instead of through Etsy. But you can buy things there, and on the Patreon, it actually kind of pairs with that, because if you sign up for just $1 a month, you can get a discount code that is yours forever, and as long as you are a patron for at least a month, you get that discount code, and it saves you 10% on everything that I make and sell, with the exception of artifacts, but artifacts are in a different class of things that I make, so I haven't even finished one yet. I started a few, but I haven't finished one yet. They take too long for me to afford giving you a discount on, unfortunately, but everything else in the shop, you get 10% off with just $1 a month, so wands, character portraits, art, you name it. That sums up my video for my acting experience. If any of those sound particularly interesting, you want me to go more in depth about what was your acting experience like in theater versus high school, or what, your actual theater classes, or what was your experience like at the Renaissance Festival, please let me know in the comments below, or tweet at me, or email me, theramblingBard@gmail.com. Easy to do, easy to remember. Just let me know what you'd like to hear about, and I will ramble on some more. So thanks for stopping by, adventurers. Patrons, thank you so much for supporting me. Even if it's just $1 a month, it means the world to me, and it helps me more than I can possibly tell you. Contributions are going to go toward building my curing rig for more wands. I need to go to Home Depot and get some PVC piping, and then from my supplier for chemicals, I need to order tung oil and citrus solvent, which is considerably more than what I make on Patreon each month right now, but that's okay. I'm pulling stuff out of my own pocket to work on that, and that's why the Patreon needs to grow. So I would love your support, and for patrons that are already supporting, stuck on my own desk, that are already supporting me, thank you so much. And above all else, adventurers, I have the last thing that I always like to leave you with before I sign off here on Twitch, as well as ending this video here for YouTube, because I'm pretty much just going to cut this and paste it. No editing to do. Hey, no pit stains. Cool. I'm sweating underneath this. It's hot underneath the lights. And anyway, adventurers, last but not least, as I always like to say, life is a series of choices between fear and love. Choose love. Bye, everybody.